All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jason Reynolds with the Real Estate Now podcast, and I am excited today to have Mayor of Granbury, Nin Hulett, today with us. How are you, sir?
Jason, I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So Mayor Hulett has been the mayor for 7 years now. Got one more year left coming up in the term.
Yes.
And so we're just excited to have him on. We're going to talk a little bit, get to know him a little bit through just asking some questions, and then I really want to talk about Granbury. And just, learn more about it and also the growth that we're seeing here. So to start off, how long have you lived in town?
Actually, Jason, I came to Granbury like everybody to enjoy the lake.
The
lake here, and I worked for General Motors Corporation, and I spent twice I was transferred to Texas. And my second time around, I looked for a lake community because I like boating and this and that, and everybody said, go to Granbury, Texas. And so I moved to Granbury, Texas in '99.
Okay.
Built a house here and was still working for GM, and I commuted back and forth, which was, I also had a place up in the Metroplex there in Arlington that I'd stay at when I was doing project work or flying out of town and this and that. But I landed in Granbury and actually knew nothing about Granbury and the fact that it had a lake, a body of water here that I could put my boat in, and that's exactly what I did for many years. So I come to Granbury in last part of '99, first part of 2000.
Okay, so then I did a little bit of research, and there's a really cool article in one of the local magazines that kind of goes through your history. So you're from Missouri, is that right?
I grew up in northern Missouri as a child, and then we moved to, my parents were farmers, and farming, wasn't what it all
what it's cracked up to be.
And so they had an opportunity to move to the Metroplex. I call it the Metroplex, Independence, Missouri, home of Harry S. Truman.
Okay.
And they ventured into factory work.
Okay.
And kept the farm, co-opted, and sharecropped it, and kept most of the farm going also. So we still had that going on.
Okay.
But my senior years, my high school years, I spent up in the what I call the Metroplex, and graduated from a high school there in Independence, Missouri, which was a little bigger than where I was from up in northern Missouri, which was Bethany, Missouri, which was a small community similar to Granbury. It was the county seat, but it was a farming community, and that was it, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also saw on there that your family had a musical inclination. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, we when we sat around and had family reunions, we didn't talk much, but when we drug out the guitars and the pianos and all that, then we started communicating. So we and I still continue to do that around Granbury. Actually, I play it. It's good that I can just when I'm downtown or I'm around and I walk in, somebody's playing music, they'll say, "Hey, Nin, come and set in," or "Hey, give me a bathroom break so I can." And so I'll end up playing with most of them out here because I've done it all my life, and probably something I enjoy doing. But it was one of those things that I couldn't make a career of it because everybody's. There's always somebody better than you, so.
Yeah.
But I enjoy, yes, my whole family, we played instruments and sang and did all that. My dad would enter us in the hometown fairs, and we won a few of those and everything, so grew up doing that.
Wow. Okay. So then what was the transition between you graduating and then eventually working for GM? How did that kind of line up?
Well, like I said, we went to the Metroplex there, and I graduated high school. My sister was already going to college, and I could tell my parents were kind of struggling with that, and I wanted to continue my education and go to college, but I joined the Army. I joined the Army, went in the Army, served 3.5 years in the Army, and when I got back out of the service, I wanted to continue my education there, and Uncle Sam was going to be paying for it, naturally.
There you go.
And as I was doing that, I was looking for work, and I was actually playing music on a country and western show up in the Metroplex there in Kansas City.
Okay.
And one of the guys I was working with ran the show, and I was going to have to quit the show because I was going to take on another job and continue to get my education too. And I mentioned that I had applied at General Motors and this and that. He said, "Well, was General Motors hiring?" I said, "Well, yeah, they were, but there was a big, long line of people." He said, "Well, could you continue to play music for me if you worked for GM?" And I said, "Well, probably so, because it was like a day shift thing,
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, let me make a phone call." I was the chief engineer at the plant. I said, wow. So sure enough, I got a call the next day to come in and fill out another application. I don't know what happened to my original one, but fill out another application. And they had hired all the assembly line workers, but he said, I see that you're going to school. Would you consider being a co-op student for GM? And I said, what does that do? And they said, well, a co-op student, we will sponsor you, we'll send you to school, we'll pay for your schooling, and we'll also pay you to work here at the plant.
Wow.
And so at that time I was working in labor relations, so I was going to be working with different managers and going to school too. So I always tell people that was my 2 scholarships, was GM as a co-op student, and Uncle Sam was also
the
still
GI
giving
Bill,
me money
right?
back, a GI Bill. So I said, you know, absolutely, I'll do that. And so that's what I did, and the rest was history. I started traveling around with GM, and that's one of the things that got me to Granbury too. So.
Okay, great. So then you're married, correct?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
My wife and I, we've been married now for 8 years, and I have 2 kids on my side. She has 2 kids on her side.
Okay.
And between us, we have 5 grandkids.
Wow.
And they're stretched all the way from Odessa to League City. I don't know where League City is. And by the way, let me give a shout out to my grandkids.
All right.
Bryson and Jimmy and Taylor and Brooke and Jenna.
I love that.
Say hi to all of you out there.
That's great. That's great. So, you know, I read in that article, did you try and woo your wife with the song, but you didn't know you made up lyrics?
Oh, yes. That was, and they still talk about that here. But I made up some.
You pretended to know the lyrics?
I pretended to sing it in Spanish, and I made up the Spanish words, which went okay up in Missouri, because people thought I was speaking, but I wasn't, you know, actually. And so when I tried it here, I was criticized severely and said, "You are not speaking in Spanish.
She caught you.
She said, "Don't ever do that again. You're in Texas now.
You can't fake it.
You can't fake it." So I don't try that song anymore.
So, you know, now you're the mayor. What led you to want to be mayor? You know, what was the chain of events? Because this was your kind of getaway community for a while, and then I'm assuming you retired here. And
I went through, actually, my wife and I, and you know, a lot of people call it a divorce, but we separated. My previous wife, and she continued to work in the corporate world. I wanted to stay right here in Granbury, and it was a kind of a mutual agreement. And I was around town here and still working, and getting ready to retire, actually, and sitting around with some folks, and they got to talking about the different things going on in this community. Now, you know, I mentioned to you earlier, when I moved to Granbury, all I thought about was the lake, and here again, I don't even know that I'd been downtown yet.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting around with some folks at the golf course that I live on now, and they're talking about these different things, and I said, well, why don't sounds like some of you guys ought to be one of these council members you're talking about that could make a difference. And you know, you need to serve and be one of those. And they said, well, why don't you do that, Nin? You're fixing to be retired, and you know, you got the time to do that. And I said, well, is there an opening? They said, well, no, you'd have to run against. I said, well, I don't want to oust somebody or run against somebody if there's an opening.
Yeah.
A couple weeks later, they come to me and said, you're in luck. One of the council members is not going to run this next term, and there's an opening. Now, are you going to run? And I said, well, you all get out and support me. I'll get out there and run.
Okay.
So I did that, and it was basically to serve the community, because that's what it was all about. And, and as I listened to them, and I said, well, you know, I can serve as a council member and have a voice.
Yeah.
And I'll have a voice for these folks.
Yeah. And
so I did that, and I won the election, and the following year, they made me the mayor pro tem. Now, here again, I thought, well, you know, I've looked, the mayor pro tem doesn't do anything but take over when the mayor's not here. And the mayor's here every day. You know, he's here all the time. So I thought, that's no big deal. Well, a month after I got selected as the mayor pro tem, the mayor that was currently serving had he had a severe stroke, and and was not able to serve out. And so the next thing I know, they're calling me at City Hall and says, you need to come up here and put your name on all the documents, because you're going to be signing these for a while until what time he either comes back or we have a special election.
Right.
Well, he never did come back, and matter of fact, I go talk to him on occasions. He lives in Dublin, but he was never able to fully recover and come back
Okay.
to that job as mayor. And his term was up, and so I'd been serving as a mayor on training wheels, you might say, for 1 whole year. And so they asked me to go ahead and run for the mayor's job. So I had to give up my seat as a council member.
Okay.
And I ran for the mayor that year and was selected as mayor for the community. So it's kind of how the chain of events happened. And then since then, I've really gotten involved in it and really understand what the importance is of serving your community, basically, and being able to be the person to take these challenges or take these things, these issues that communities have, and to do something with them.
I think that's great. So then, when I've done my research, the last census in 2010, the population of Granbury was around 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
You've got updated numbers, so we're going to have a new one in a few years. What is the population of Granbury roughly now, would you say?
I would have to say, and a lot of people say it's, even when you drive into town, I think it's 97, 79, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, or I'm sorry, 79, 79. It's somewhere in the range of 10,000 from the last census. Now, the last census was closer to 8,000, you might say.
Okay.
So I would say that we are above. I've sat down with the county judge and we've talked about this a lot. I would say that we're going to reach over the 10,000 mark.
Okay.
And that's a growth of over 1,000 people in just that short 5-year or 2-year period of time.
Yeah.
So.
And are you seeing a larger influx? Because here we are, we're driving on 377
Mm-hmm.
before we're going into town. And there's just tons of development.
Mm-hmm.
So, when businesses are coming in, they're doing their research. Are we seeing an upswing now in people coming into Granbury?
There's definitely an upswing in the residential.
Okay.
And if we'd have went on up the road here, there's a huge one going on up there. We've got probably 5 big developments going on right now.
Okay.
And of course, as you well know, that takes a lot of infrastructure. That takes roads. That takes water.
Right.
That takes the different things that they need to make it a quality of life here in Granbury. And so we want to make sure we have that for them, and especially the water. And we've taken that challenge on. But yes, I do see a large increase. Even in the area that I live at, it's taken on a lot of construction out there, and there's a lot of new homes being built. And as I talk to builders around town, most of these homes are sold homes. So people are coming to Granbury to live.
Yeah.
And before it used to be considered a tourist community, and it still is. That's one of the biggest industries probably here in Granbury is the tourism.
Okay.
But people are coming here the first time to visit Granbury, the second time to live Granbury.
Okay.
Because they fall in love with that quick, as I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, in terms of what's driving the economy, are there certain what are like the largest employers in town that you would say in Granbury, in some of the bigger businesses? Or
some of our bigger businesses in Granbury, and a lot of communities have these, but our school is a big employer. We have a hospital that's is growing. And it's a large employer. We have the HEB outside of town. HB and Kroger both are big employers here in Granbury. Granbury itself, the city of Granbury, employs a lot of employees, and Hood County does. And then we have the United Co-op, which United Co-op supplies the electricity for probably over half.
Okay.
Granbury also has their own electric company, and we supply within the city limits a certain amount of electricity for the community also. So we have that ourselves. So those are some big employers that here in Granbury that are pretty major. And then we have our big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart. Walmart's big. They're probably a big employer also here in Granbury. So.
One thing I noticed recently too is there a new gas power plant that came in a couple years ago?
Yeah, that's Wolf Hollow. They built 2 new ones out there in the county there actually, but they have Exelon has increased that out there, and there's 2 big ones. That was a big project. That was a major project out there, and the county worked with them really well to get them to help them out there and stuff with some incentives and stuff. So it's a big one.
Okay. So then I know, how has Granbury changed? You know, there was a period of time, was that about 3 years ago, that the lake was really low?
We went now about 3 years without it being low, and you know, I guess I want to say I'm fortunate to experience that.
Yeah.
Because you always wonder what would happen if something significant like that would happen, and it happened on my watch, you might say. But
why'd you empty the lake?
And I got accused of that.
Really?
So, no, but there were several things that went into that, and you know, but the thing that was really positive about it, the community came together and they continued to do the things they needed to do, and actually our sales tax number did not decrease hardly at all during that time.
Really?
And
Okay.
that I credit the community coming together, knowing that they didn't have that lake to lean on, but they also they continued to do extra things with the community as far as events and things like that they could do with the downtown area and the outskirts of Granbury, and not have the lake to rely on.
Yeah.
The lake's back, and I think that's a big driver of people coming to Granbury. But you know, there's so many different lakes around, as I know, around Texas, that if you live close to one, you're probably going to put your boat in the closest one. So we're trying to make some unique things with our lake that would draw people that do like to go to lakes to Granbury, to this lake. And so and I think you have to do that to get the people to come to a certain lake, because like I said, if you're just going to get in the water and float your boat, you're going to go to the closest one.
Yeah.
You know?
So what are those things that you guys are working on to make it
Well, we're working
more...
on more restaurants.
Okay.
On our lake, where people can come and have what they call poker runs and different things like that. We're actually working on our conference center. One of the things that I'm supporting is that we have a really beautiful conference center. I don't know if you went by it or not, but the conference center is right on the water, and a lot of people out of the Metroplex, they have their meetings, conventions, and whatnot there, because it's a great place to have a meet, and it's a great view of the lake. But it's right on the water, and we want to put some additional docks there to where we can have more like boat shows and things like that. Small ones, have the fishing tournaments, and have things that are involved in the lake there, and have some vendors that can set up on our dock there, on our balcony, you might say, out there of our conference center.
Okay.
And so we're working on that, and we're actually working to encourage other businesses on the water, you know, like the restaurants and things like that. And there is still some property that's available to do that kind of stuff. So there again, that takes a lot of time, but those a lot of the folks, they choose to build their homes on the lake, and that's good too, because those are really those homes are pretty expensive homes, especially when they're on a main body or canals, and this lake has a lot of canals on it. But we do encourage, you know, we do want to make sure that we don't lose fact that we need to do some things that will draw people to Granbury too. And we're starting to get them. We have a new restaurant just up here. It's called right across the bridge here, and they just opened this year, and it's really a nice restaurant, and they have live music in it, and they rent boats, they rent kayaks, they rent different waterworks, you know, things like that. And so you know, you'd think that would be just a give me for the lakes, but you got to find those people that are willing to
Takes a big
invest
investment.
some money to put, to do that. You know?
Do you know off the top of your head how many folks that live in Granbury work and live here versus live and then commute to the Metroplex?
You know, I don't know the exact number, but I will say that there's still a large percentage, because if you get on the road early in the morning, and I'm one of them. I commuted back and forth to General Motors, the plant up here, for probably 5 years, and I've seen all these people. I've seen people, my neighbors. I've seen people driving to work every day and coming back home, and so I would say, and to put a percentage on it, you know, I hope it's not over 50%, and I think it's below that, but there's still a lot of them that are commuting back to the, because here again, you know, I mentioned our tourism is a big industry here. We don't have any big factories, but we have some industry here, but let's face it, they don't pay the wages that they pay up in the Metroplex. You know? And when you've got big places like General Motors, that you'll never compete with that one because it's huge. It's huge, and they pay a big, a nice big wage. But we're working to get something that fits Granbury, and we've had the leads on several factories, and we've even had an opportunity to look at what their pay scales were, and the pay scales were above what maybe the average is here in Granbury.
Okay.
And so we were hoping to get some of those, and some reasons that, you know, some of them they didn't fit Granbury totally, you know, and you know, as you know, you rely on the governor's office to give you some of those feelers, and you do some of your own with your own EDC and try to capture some of those and try to entice them to come to your community and stuff. But we want them to be a community-based company. We want them to be a part of the community.
Yeah, invest in the
and I think we'll get that.
Yeah, okay. Well, and the thing is, too, for people that live here, you can live and work in Granbury and have everything you need. You guys have all the major stores, you have all the major amenities, and so that's a great thing.
And that's what I tell people when they talk about our sales tax. Well, how is your sales tax keep growing? I said, well, we're far enough from the Metroplex that people don't want to drive to Fort Worth to buy a refrigerator.
Right.
And if we have that here, so you're right. We have accommodated all the different needs. I mean, all the way to building homes. We have lumber yards, we have Home Depot, we have Lowe's, we have the Walmarts, we have the furniture stores, we have all those things that people need to start their home.
Yeah.
And so we're getting that sales tax right here. And then naturally we have the restaurants and the retail, and we have the stores that people want to do. So if they go to the Metroplex, it's just because they want to venture out, or they're there and they want to, you know, just have a change.
Just go out and
Exactly.
Okay. So then, you know, I'm not sure if you plan on running again, but you know, so I'm sure you'll decide at some point.
Let's do a shout out to my wife right now.
But just based on, you know, you and the city council now, where do you see Granbury what's the vision for Granbury over the next 5-10 years? Whether you're a mayor or somebody else takes over, where's kind of the overall vision going?
Well, that's always a tough one, and I get asked that question a lot. You know, what's the toughest part about being the mayor? And one of the toughest parts about being the mayor of Granbury is that exact thing, is getting that vision out and getting the buy-in. Right. Not only by the council, but the community, of a vision that is a little further out than 2 years. Yeah. Because people are in a community like this, they're okay with what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're saying, hey, just let's slow down. But you can't slow down. You have to continue to try to do the things that you want for 20 years out. Right. And some of our big visionary things is, for instance, our airport. There's lots of folks that said, well, what do we need to expand our airport? You know, I don't fly. There's, you know, our airport's okay. We have already done some research, and we're fixing to expand our airport now. And this has been going on for 15 years. But we already know that we can attract corporates, we can attract new businesses, we can attract a lot of things with the expansion of our airport. Okay. So that's a vision right there that we're working on presently. And to get these businesses to come to Granbury, and we've already got the grant through the Texas Aviation, and we've got our right-of-ways involved. We should be turning dirt next year on this expansion, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a nice airport, and then we've already got people that want to start their businesses out there. They want to, and these are businesses that have a lot of money. Yeah. You know, because they're into the aviation part of it. So that in itself is a vision that I think our airport is going to expand. We're going to have, you're going to see a lot more of that type of business here, the type of people in town, and also, you know, our water needs. We just built a new reverse osmosis water plant. Okay. That has probably 5 phases to it. We just started it up, phase 1, and we're already into phase 2 now, and putting the infrastructure in because we're trying to provide water for additional customers and to reach out to where we can have these developments come in. I mean, I don't want to be turning developments down because I can't provide them with the water. The
infrastructure.
Right.
Right.
And so we've got that, and now we're looking to naturally what goes in must come out. We've got to get us a new wastewater treatment plant, and ours is up to 60%, and with the TCQ, they say, you know, you should be at this phase right now. You should be looking at land. You should have your engineering studies. We're at that point
just so
right
you're prepared.
Now. And so that we can get it. Well, you actually get penalized. You get fined if you're not doing those
necessary preparation.
Exactly. And so we're doing that right now, and we've got we're ahead of the game there. So we're working to get a much better and bigger, and put one on this side of the lake also as a wastewater treatment plant. So, and I want to continue to do all those things to where we can get those industries, those factories here, and to continue to have the quality of life that the people in Granbury, you know, that want.
Right.
You know, and we're one of the other things that's sometimes small, but it's big to the community is what we're doing with our parks and our bike and hike trails and things like that. And we are continuing to improve those, and we have a master plan that's out there over 5 years now that this is what it's going to look like.
Okay.
And so we want to continue to do that also.
Well, yeah, just as we're driving around the square right now, this was redeveloped within the last couple of years.
We just finished it last year. We just finished it last year, and this was a long-term vision. They started it with some prior council and stopped on it for what reasons I don't know, and so the council took this back on and basically finished it. We put the new sidewalks, we put the new streets, and it was twofold though. As we were doing this, and we got some money granted us to do this, but when we did it, we were actually able to replace old 75-year-old infrastructure that was going to need to be replaced anyway, and wouldn't have got grant money because it wouldn't have fall in the same category as beautification and that kind of stuff. So we were able to tear up the old streets, and we did it in phases where it didn't impact the merchants so much, and they worked really well with us, and the construction people did too. But we were able to do that and put in the new infrastructure that was needed here
for downtown,
for future growth also, and for the downtown area. So,
are there any other big projects that are kind of in the works now besides what you've already talked about?
Well, those are some of our major ones right there. We do have, like I said, we've got some big developments that are not only home developments and developments for future homes, but they're also going to have some retail and stuff like that, you know, with some of them even with some hotels. We got some plans to put some developments in there that have the a hotel slash retail shops and stuff like that in them, and those will be big. We're expanding. They're expanding the hospital again, and we're going to add to that. The school went through a $86 million renovation just last year, 2 years ago, and they're pretty much completed on that. We also have some Weatherford College is here, and Weatherford College wants to expand into Granbury, also get bigger here. And college in a community is almost like having a factory. You know, it draws a lot of folks here. It brings in the right people and stuff, and so we're excited about that. And we work hand in hand with Tarleton out of Stephenville. We actually have some facilities here that they have donated to the city, but we operate them as arts and culture and things like that. And Granbury's big on arts and stuff around this community here. So you have it's pretty burst. You know, you have that, and you have when you go downtown, you have the Granbury Opera House that we spent over $3 million on about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's phenomenal. People come to it and they just think it's great. You know, I was on the council then, and actually I was Mayor Pro Tem acting as the mayor then, and I was concerned about the price tag on this thing, but it has paid off, and it's doing a great job for the community, and people love to utilize that opera house here in Granbury. So
that's great. That's great. Well, guys, we just wrapped up our run. As you can tell, there's tons of great things happening in Granbury. Lots of development, lots of growth, a great area to come to. So if you haven't been, come check it out. It's a great place to just spend a weekend, or maybe just, it's only a 40-minute drive roughly from the Metroplex. But we would really like to give a huge thanks to Mayor Hulett for joining us today.
Thank you.
And taking the time out, and we just wish you all the best.
And I would like to give a shout out, and once more, to my lovely wife. It's her birthday today, and she said, "Really, you're going to go right around with this guy?"
With this guy.
But I took one for the team here. But no, it's her birthday, and so happy birthday, baby.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
You betcha.
All right.